These other machines. Yes, we need the machine.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning to all of us. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Yes,
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, and thank
Good
you
morning.
very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Jambo.
Jambo.
Good morning, DG.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, I'm seeing Professor Christian Boy. Good morning. I'm seeing my session chairman, Professor Rafael Munavu. Good morning to all of us.
Good morning.
Yes, my name is Walter Oyawa, currently the Director General of the National Commission for Science, Technology, and Innovation. We really want to thank you for sparing some few minutes to be with us to interrogate our draft strategic plan and also other similar documents, the science and technology policy, and even the proposed national priorities in science, technology, and innovation. It's our prayer that the engagement will be fruitful, and at the end of the session, we'll have learned a lot from you and also you from us. Allow me to very quickly mention that the National Commission for Science, Technology, and Innovation is established by the Science, Technology, and Innovation Act 2013, revised in 2014, and is established with the sole purpose of regulating the science, technology, and innovation sector and assuring quality in the sector. Allow me just to reiterate that we not only regulate research, but we regulate the entire sector, because that has been also a question which has been asked on several times. Many of us, I think, are aware of the NCST, which probably the focus was more on research, but the act enacted in 2013 gave the Commission the power to regulate the entire STI sector. So we regulate research, we regulate science, we regulate and advise on technology, we regulate and advise on innovation. Having done that very brief introduction, allow me to invite my colleague who's in charge of this activity, the strategic plan committee, and who has been taking us through very well, to maybe call for a word of prayer, and then from there we'll proceed. He'll be able to show us the program of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. Yeah, thank you very much, DG. Maybe before we progress, allow me to welcome all of you for this important meeting. Let me request my colleague, Mr. Rolex Opondo, to lead us in a word of prayer.
Let's believe and pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you this day. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you even for enabling us to be able to meet here and deliberate on our strategic plan and the strategic input. We pray for wisdom and knowledge from every participant for the benefit of our institution and our country at large. We pray this short prayer, believing and praying, trusting in your holy name. Amen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Opondo, for the opening prayer. My name is Godfrey Karerwa. I'm the team leader, development of the NACOSTI strategic plan, 2023-2028. Allow me to welcome my colleague, the Acting Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Gideon Kirui, for welcome remarks.
Remind us to welcome all of us for this session. We start by appreciating that we have quite a number of participants who have joined us today. I know we will receive quite a lot of input from all the participants, and we appreciate that you've created time to join us today, and we look forward to interacting with you during this session. In the course of the presentations, we welcome your suggestions and input into the presentations. We'll be using the chat where we have some inputs on questions along the way. And in the course of the presentations, the presenters will be able to give feedback to any questions or any suggestions that we have. So for now, I wish to welcome all of us and wish us a fruitful discussion. Back to you, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bwana Kirui, for the welcome remarks. Projected for your viewing is the program for the day. We have already had the welcome remarks from Mr. Kirui. Next, it will be the Director General, the National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Walter Oyawa, who will give us a quick current status of the STI sector. Then we shall get Dr. David Jubi on the draft national STI policy. And then I'll be able to present the highlights of the draft strategic plan 2023-2028. And then we shall have discussion and way forward by the Director General. And then finally, we shall end with a vote of thanks. Without wasting much time, allow me to request the participants to use the chat and they put in their names and their institutions, and where possible, their designations for record purposes. Allow me now to welcome the Director General, NACOSTI, to make his presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, once more, good morning, and allow me to acknowledge the presence of the owners of this strategic plan, NACOSTI Board of Directors. So far, I've seen the session chairman, Professor Rafael Manavu, and Prof, if you don't mind, kindly request you to make some remarks, and any other board member, I think, who is in session. So, Professor Manavu, if you are getting me, you could make some remarks.
Yeah, I can get you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, sir.
Yeah, I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome everybody on board. This is a very useful engagement. It is extremely important as we develop our strategic plan that we get input from all the stakeholders, and your ideas will be extremely useful because they will enrich our document, which will determine the trajectory that our country will take in utilizing science, technology, and innovation for socio-economic development of our country. And therefore, I welcome all of you on board, and please feel free to share your ideas. And we hope that by the end of this day, NACOSTI will have a good input into our strategic plan, which will be beneficial to our country. Thank you very much, and I wish everybody a very useful and engaging participation. Asante. Did you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we heard you. Thank you very much, Prof, for those guiding remarks. I'm just trying to check if there's any other of our directors who are online. I think they may also say a few words. If there's any other director. So far, we haven't seen, but probably when they join, I think we will request them to make some few remarks.
Agreed.
So, yes, I just had a presentation. Sorry, the ICT person is, yes. Yeah, I hope we are able to see what is on the screen, and titled NACOSTI Next Generation Strategic Plan. This plan has been developed as per the guidelines that were set by the National Treasury, but it is not conclusive because I think the guidelines are being upgraded. So what we are doing is to do the initial stakeholder engagement as we await for the final guidelines on I think the 5th generation strategic plan, which is being prepared by the National Treasury. The information we have is that probably by the end of this month, we'll have the guidelines that incorporates the government's agenda, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. So during that time, again, we will come back to you just to finalize. But we thought what we have, we could also share. And I've been requested by our team to very quickly give a brief background information on the STI sector. And I would want to present that indeed we are living during unprecedented times, which have been grossly affected and disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We cannot ignore this pandemic. Many lives have been lost. And on the other side, we also believe that the pandemic has presented opportunities and a refocus on science, technology, and innovation. So you find countries that leveraged on technology, like the Malaysias, the Singapores, that just use simple technology, drone technology, and others were able to save quite a number of lives. They were able also to have their economy, they're also able to have the economy moving on with less disruptions than countries that did not use this technology. So we believe the other side of COVID was a bad thing, but on the other side, it has also brought to the attention of the key decision makers the importance of science, technology, and innovation. And in this regard, there is the latest recommendations from the United Nations Commission for Technology and Development. This is the commission which used to be headed by Dr. Mukisa Kitui, our very own, and they have released recommendations dated 29th July 2022, and they recommend the following for consideration by national governments. I will just highlight one. They are recommending, or the UN, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development is recommending that governments to closely link science, technology, and innovation and strategies of sustainable development by prominently featuring capacity building in information and communication technologies and science, technology, innovation in national development planning. what you might call as STI mainstreaming, one of the areas that NACOSTI is now a focal point on behalf of the government. Yes, the strategic plan takes into consideration the SDGs. This is global agenda. And we would want to reiterate that the government of Kenya is committed to the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, that's the SDGs, as agreed upon by the international community. These are a total of 17. And we would all agree that the impacts of climate change are now irreversible. The way we are seeing even just the climate change in Kenya by itself, where some of the lakes are rising up and so many things are happening. Even now we're supposed to be in the cold weather in Nairobi, but you can see that we are not sure what happened there. So climate change is a big issue. And as the NACOSTI, as the technology focal point, science and technology focal point, indeed our strategic plan needs to demonstrate that it's able to highlight matters of SDGs. We also want to inform at international level that NACOSTI has also been designated by the Kenya government as the national focal point for a number of Kenya's international obligations. And this is, we are the focal point in the Biological Weapons Convention, whose headquarters in Geneva. We are also the focal point of the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. We are also the focal point of the Africa Regional Cooperative Agreement for Research, Development, and Training. This is affiliated to the International Atomic Energy Agency. We are also the focal point of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. And most of this work we have actually delegated to the University of Nairobi. And we were fortunate to have one of the seismic assessment centers at Karura Forest to the support of CTBTO. We are also the focal point of for Kenya, the East African Science and Technology Commission, STECO, which is affiliated to the East African Community. And very recently, I think we are also in the International Science Council and also the International Science and Technology Center. So quite a number of international obligations. A number of MDS, particularly universities and research institutions, are benefited out of this. And I think the most recent one is Egerton University, which through our participation as a member of the governing board of the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, were able to be selected to host a regional research center on biotechnology. This is a top center. This is a center which will be the second under ICGB, the second to China. And I think a lot of activities are going on in the background to ensure that this regional center takes shape. So these are some of the benefits that as a country have gotten. Those of you who are aware of AFRA, a lot of money is being spent on Kenyan researchers from various universities. Almost weekly, we are sending out requests for nominations of both staff and students who can take up some of these programs. So quite a number of benefits in this. So this is one of the areas which our strategic plan also encompasses. And then we come to the Africa Agenda. We cannot forget Africa Agenda 2063, where if we look at the last paragraph there, just to save on time, the African Union AU Agenda 2063 recognizes science, technology, and innovation as multifunctional tools and enablers for achieving continental development goals. The AU Agenda further emphasizes that Africa's sustained growth, competitiveness, and economic transformation requires sustained investment in new technologies and continuous innovation. So everybody is talking about investment. The resources are scarce, but when you come to prioritizing, I think we need to demonstrate that there's need to prioritize science, technology, and innovation, investment in science, technology, innovation for the good of the country and for public good. So AU has gone ahead. They even have the AU Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy, TISA 2024, which is being implemented. I think it's under review at this particular point in time. But the bottom line is that there's a lot of interest in science, technology, and innovation. And from our end as NACOSTI, we see science, technology, and innovation as having direct impact on national security. If you look at now when you're talking about Biological Weapons Convention, those are matters of national security. It also has direct bearing on public safety, and this was clearly demonstrated during the COVID-19 pandemic, where science could be used in different ways. I think people are now talking of dual use of science, technology, innovation, that as we look at the good side, what are the possibilities of also being used for other purposes? So that's for the AU. At national level, allow me just to highlight that Article 11 of the Constitution of Kenya emphasizes the importance of science and technology in the knowledge-based economic development of the country. And we are pleased that the government has really reinforced the digital superhighway agenda, the digital economy, which I think goes hand in hand with the circular economy. So this really speaks into the Constitution. The Constitution further emphasizes the recognition of indigenous innovations and technologies, Distinguished participants, I just want to portray that we have not done very well in the infusion of indigenous inventions in our economy. And this is one area which we would really want to shout loud, that we really need to synergize on how we are able to maximize on indigenous inventions and technologies. The information out there, the data there indicates that when you talk of medicine, 80% of people in the world still use the traditional medicines, and yet they have not come into formal use. We know countries like China have even policies that allow direct use of some of these traditional medicines and so forth. So it's an area which also as NACOSTI we feel we need to shout aloud, and our strategic plan needs to provide and enable scientists and practitioners to be able to take advantage of what we have locally. Further, Article 45, Section 5 requires the state to support, promote, and protect intellectual property. This is also another very weak area, distinguished participants or eminent participants, where a number of our youngsters are coming up with great innovations. They are displaying them out there, they're even winning awards, but you find a number of them do not have IP rights. As NACOSTI, and we were talking about this yesterday at the engineers conference in Naivasha that was opened by His Excellency the day before yesterday, that there is need, that in all institutions there's need for an IP management office. And this we are implementing through the STI mainstreaming target. Where, for those who are the STI champions, you must be aware that we are asking, do you have an IP management office? And if you don't have, when are you instituting one? So that all researchers, be it in universities, be it in Tibet institutions, be it in such institutions like KEMRI and CALRO, be it in MDS, even in government Ministry of State Department, there needs to be an intellectual property management office, because one of your staff might be able to make a discovery, and before you know, that discovery is somewhere. So we are getting quite a number of examples in the engineers conference yesterday, whereas some people are developing their innovation before they knew it was already patented in one of the top countries elsewhere. So the issue of IP management is captured in the Constitution. We really need to actualize it through provision of policy and other things. Also, locally, Vision 2030 recognizes the key role played by science, technology, and innovation in wealth creation, in building human capital required for the transition to a knowledge-driven economy. And therefore, MTP2, MTP3, which is now concluded, really gave a lot of emphasis on science and technology. And even the draft MTP4 has placed STI as the second enabler after infrastructure. So there's a lot that is there. And all we need to do is maybe find a way that the key funding agencies, particularly National Treasury, is able to allocate sufficient funds for this. And this one, we need your support. Also, most recently, we have to incorporate, as we are saying, the documents are not finalized for the guidelines, but we really need to incorporate the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which is the government's flagship. And in this agenda, as we're all aware, the plan is cognizant of the prevailing domestic challenges, as well as external factors, such as rising global inflation and interest rates. We are aware that the regional conflict in Europe, the Ukraine issue, is affecting us in terms of supply of grains, in terms of supply of energy. It's actually literally affecting the entire globe. And the long-term impact of COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict are issues that we need to take into account when we are doing planning, any sort of planning, be it strategic planning and so forth. Now, the rationale of the bottom-up approach to economic transformation has been informed by the existing dichotomy, where about only 15% of the national workforce are engaged in formal employment, while the other 85%, so it's not 85% of Kenyans, but 85% of identified workforce are engaged in the informal sector, mostly under the micro, small and medium enterprises, that is MSEs. And this one, I think, is another of the flagships within the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, to have an SME economy. So again, as NACOSTI, we really want to participate and partner with all of us in this agenda. The bottom-up plan is anchored on 5 key pillars. I'm sure most of you are experts in this, but these are some of the things that have to be priority moving forward. As NACOSTI, we are charged with the responsibility. In fact, our function number 1 is to engage stakeholders like yourself to determine the national priorities to which there will be government funding. So for the bottom-up plan is anchored on 5 pillars. Number 1 is agriculture transformation and inclusive growth. The other one is SME economy, as I've mentioned, which involves transforming the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Number 3 is housing and settlement, affordable housing and settlement. Number 4 is healthcare, providing universal healthcare. And number 5 is the digital and creative economy, which is being called the digital power and creative economy. So the priority interventions proposed in the plan are expected to contribute towards 6 broad objectives, including the lowering the cost of living, eradicating hunger, managing unemployment. So this one, ladies and gentlemen, you might be able to read. But these are some of the factors which I think apply not only to NACOSTI as an MDA, but to all of us. Further, I think our strategic plan, being a technology institution or a technology regulator, we really have to take note of emerging technologies, emerging frontier technologies, as they call them. And I just want to inform that there are 3 types. I think they're emerging almost every other day, so it's even difficult to classify them. But for now, they are grouping them or categorizing them in form of digital technologies, physical technologies, and biological technologies. In the digital technologies, they're talking of the metaverse, which is, I think, the keyword of the moment, the Internet of Things, which has been there for quite a while, the blockchain, the artificial intelligence, the big data, and quantum computing. We need to be abreast. We might not have the resources to do what those other countries that are way ahead of us do, but at least we need to be abreast of what is happening. And in particular, we took note that, like South African government developed a white paper, whether a white or blue paper, on the 4th Industrial Revolution. I think as Kenyans, we need to move ahead and now develop a blue or white paper on the 5th Industrial Revolution, which is underway. There are also physical technologies, which our team, we had a team just coming from Korea the other week, and we're able to see really, really advanced levels of technology that involve autonomous driving, vehicles with driverless vehicles. We're able to see 3D printing, which in this point in time is even being used to print human body parts. Of course, the ethical issues that need to be addressed, but there's a lot happening that we need to keep on abreast with. Then there are biological technologies, bioprinting. This is what I was talking about, printing of the first man with the printed eye, I think, is from the UK and is there. So this brings in a lot of other challenges. The positives and the other ethical issues are also on board. Yeah, we also want to inform that the UNCTAD has just produced a report, Technology and Innovation Report of 2023. I think you can Google it, or we can share with you later on. You can Google it and download. And it's focusing on green technological revolution. And they're saying this, and this is quote, I'm just quoting from what we received from there, that if developing countries act now to catch this wave, then they can grow stronger economies while tackling climate change. And now is the time for developing countries to capture more of the value being created in the green tech revolution, and to use it to grow the economies, make them more resilient to shocks, reduce inequalities. One of the areas of concern, I think, to this development of technology is that countries that are poorer will continue being poorer, and the other countries that are at the top will continue being richer. So the issue of inequalities is of great concern in the modern world. So UNCTAD goes ahead and calls on governments in developing countries to, number 1, invest in more complex and greener sectors through policy instruments. Number 2, boost technical skills, scale up investments in ICT infrastructure, and address connectivity gaps between small and large firms. This is really within the government agenda, a very strong agenda. We're very pleased that it's fitting in also with the global agenda. Then number 3, build capacities to harness frontier technologies. These are technologies that are coming there every other day that we need to keep abreast of. Of greater interest are these technologies that involve printing human body parts, because they have both a dual use, they have both the growth part, and they also have the aspects of national security involved in this one. Yeah, allow me also to say that what informs our strategic plan also is the act that establishes NACOSTI and its other agencies. This is word for word. The act was enacted for 3 purposes. And number 1 was to facilitate, that is the STI Act. Number 1 was to facilitate the promotion, coordination, and regulation of the progress of science, technology, and innovation in the country. NACOSTI does this, the other agencies does this. We promote, we coordinate, we regulate, we advise. And that really is our core function, but we cannot do it without a multi-sector approach and involving you distinguished participants. Number 2 is to assign priority to the development of science, technology, and innovation. And we are pleased that our government at this particular point in time is really, there's a lot that they've done in, I think, the few months that they've been there, most of it focusing on science, technology, innovation. And number 3 is to entrench science, technology, and innovation into the national production system and for connected purposes. This is where the STI mainstreaming comes in, which again is in this year's PC for MDS, beginning this July, coordinated by NACOSTI under the ministry and the supervision of the Ministry of Education. So we are supposed to entrench science, technology, innovation into the national production system and for connected purposes. All ministries, all departments, all agencies, and so forth. Because I believe if you're not involved in research, you must be involved in science. If you're not involved in science, we believe you must be involved in technology. And finally, if we are not in all this, there must be some innovation we are doing because it's a requirement of government that all of us needs to be innovative. So that establishes us. We are also driven by a very recent circular. I think it is, if not this month, then it's last month. I've just forgotten to put the date, which came from the Executive Office of the President, from the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, which talked of strengthening of the regulatory role and capacity of regulatory agencies. And this is issued in Executive Order number 1 of 2023. And I've just quoted one paragraph there, and if you allow me to read, that among the functions of the presidency include the overall provision of policy direction and leadership, as well as the coordination of functions of ministries and state departments. In this regard, the presidency signals its intention to achieve substantive service delivery objectives of this government through the enhancement of the regulatory reach and capacity of the regulatory authorities and entities outlined in the reference executive order. NACOSTI is one of the several regulatory agencies, and that means that the provisions that we have been given as a regulator, we really have to ensure that we discharge them, because this is now an executive order of the presidency, and we hope this will inform, even as you engage us, will inform our strategic plan. We also want to inform that this is, when you talk of science, technology, innovation sector, this is the standard document, which has been there for many years. It might not have been captured in the Act, that there's what you can, there are several names to this system. Others would want to call it innovation system. Others would want to, lately, I think it's transformed from innovation system to science, technology, and innovation system. Others would want to call it research system. But the bottom line is it involves everybody. That science, technology, innovation cannot be done in silo. It has to be done collectively. And we hope our strategic plan is, and even the STI mainstreaming target allows for that fusion, whether to be forced on us or to be encouraged is another issue. But the system talks of 3 subsystems. First one is the political governance and regulatory subsystem, which are the government of Kenya, which are the Ministry of Education, which are the other ministries, which are the NACOSTIs, maybe the National Research Fund, the Kenya on the side. Then the second system is the education and research system, which are the professional education training, higher education and research, public sector research, TVET institutions. And then we have the third arm, which is the business and industrial subsystem. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where now the weakest linker. There's a lot of research happening, a lot of activities, but linking it to the business and industrial system so that when JICO can feel it, still remains a significant challenge. So we would ask you to advise us, to help us on how we are able to force this multi-sectoral approach, because you can see this is a multi-sectoral approach. The latest terminology that they're giving us is that it's a quintuple helix whole government approach. We used to talk of triple helix, then quadruple helix. Now it's quintuple helix, which involves even the ecosystem and even the locality, like the counties that we're involved in. So this is the kind of system, this is what informs our strategic plan and other planning documents. Yeah, as I come to, before I hand over to my colleague, I just want to reiterate that probably we have the best opportunity in this country in terms of promoting and escalating science and technology to the highest levels. And I was just able to pick some tweets of His Excellency, our President, before he became President, if you allow me. And in 2015, I think he was a minister, he made some very powerful statements, which hopefully will now come to pass. He said, we are living in a new age, an age of science, technology, innovation. The children under your care must compete in this world. That was His Excellency the President in 2015. And then another tweet in 2019, another very powerful statement that he made. Since we must compete with the best in the world, we have to scale up our engagement with science, technology, innovation space, especially among our young generation. Science is going to rule the future, and you have to be ready. We believe that now that he is the president, that science is going to rule in the country, is going to rule in the government, is going to rule everywhere. That all our system, one or another, connected to science, technology, and innovation. He made a recent one, I think soon after his election. This is now October 2022. He said Africa must consciously place science at the center of its planning. This really, I really strongly believe, informs why all MDAs have to be involved in the STI mainstreaming target, because everything that you do, there's a science angle to it, there's a technology angle to it. And he said, and I quote, that it must increase funding, that African governments, including Kenya, must increase funding for research and work with scientists to generate fresh data and ideas that can guide policy interventions to drive economic growth. So with those remarks, just a quick table on countries that have excelled. This is, you can Google this. You can see those who have invested highly. And the topmost is Israel, which has invested almost like 4.8, 4.9 of their GDP in R&D. And I think all of us know where Israel is. The other one is South Korea, where some of us visited last week, and we were extremely, extremely impressed that this data has direct bearing. What you see on the ground for those who have gone there is really, really high level technology. And this is actually a passion of these people. They have also invested around 4.5 of their GDP in research and development, and the impacts are there. Japan, again, US, the same, China, the same, Canada. Kenya, we are probably the best within the region. At the moment, probably 0.8%. And that's why in the STI mainstreaming, MDAs are being encouraged, all MDAs, regardless of whether you're a research institution or not, being encouraged to invest 2% of your budget on R&D, on STI, and so forth. And we believe beyond the STI mainstreaming, the Ministry of Education is picking up also this very seriously, especially for research institutions and for universities, that they need 2%. It doesn't have to be 2% directly to research. It can be in the form of capacity building, training your research. It can be in the form of research infrastructure. You have bought a very expensive equipment. That is part of your contribution to R&D. So just allow me to also announce that the act that establishes 3 other key agencies without whom we cannot survive. There is Part 2, Section 3 establishes the commission, that's NACOSTI, as the regulating and advising agency. There's Part 6, Section 28, that establishes the Kenya National Innovation Agency as the one to manage the innovation ecosystem. They are now have moved somewhere a little bit, but I think it will stabilize. Then we have the National Research Fund, which is the funding agency, and we all work together in synergies to be able to deliver on our mandate. Allow me to also inform what informs our strategic plan. Function number 1 is to develop in consultation with stakeholders the priorities in scientific, technological, and innovation activities in Kenya in relation to the economic and social policies of the government and the country's international obligations. Distinguished participants, we are pleased to inform that the board of NACOSTI recently approved 12-point priorities in science, technology, and innovation for stakeholder engagement. So this is one of the documents that we hope you can interrogate. They are broader, they are not detailed, they are broader so that it allows for all the sectors. They are heavily benchmarked with what is happening internationally, ladies and gentlemen. So as you give us your opinion, please try and also benchmark. But you've tried, like number 1 is R&D strengthening, R&D priorities. That means that we need the country's priorities on R&D. And this one, NACOSTI did set, I think, some years back. It has now expired this year. So there will be need for another priorities just for R&D, so that the funding or the focus in MDAs is focused on those areas of national importance. Of course, if new priorities come, then it needs to be interrogated. Then R&D financing and R&D infrastructure. There's also number 2, a priority, which maybe you might not have thought is part of STI, but it is. It's called STI education, STI communication, STI talent development, and developing the next generation workforce. Things are changing very fast, and unless we have a new line of thinking from our youngsters to be able to do what countries like Korea and Japan and the rest are doing, then we might find ourselves in a lot of trouble. Then there's the element of STI inclusivity, STI advocacy, STI diplomacy, and policy reviews. So there's something for everybody here, very key. On the last column, you can see the countries that we have benchmarked with, including our very own bottom-up economic agenda. Then we have number 4 is fostering technology, commercialization, MSE, startups, and smart technologies. This is indeed, I think, what we have in the bottom-up economic agenda. Then there's health security. This is also an economic agenda. Yes, so number 6 is on STI food security and nutrition. Then number 7 is on 5th industrial revolution, digital economy, data governance, emerging frontier technologies. By the way, if you just look at this, you'll see that this is actually, I can see like Number 6, there's GOK MTP4. Number 7, there's GOK MTP4. So a number of these are part of already of the government agenda. Then there's STI for Fifth Industrial Revolution, STI for SDGs, STI for national security, public safety, and emergency response. And as participants were aware, the government established a university of special degree awarding university, that's the National Defense University, and it's doing very well. We also have the National Intelligence Research University College and Intelligence. So there are a number of the security sector coming in science technology sector. Number 10 is STI mainstreaming, which is happening at MDS through transformation reforms in policy, governance, and so forth. Number 11 is strategic multi-agency approach. We believe there needs to be a policy that enforces this one. And number 12 is STI for sustainable urbanization, county development, and resilient communities. So you can check and tell us what you have left out or what we need to remove from this, because these are broader. And if stakeholders endorse this and improve on this, then this will inform even the areas that the National Treasury will allocate money to, because they'll become a national priority as approved by the board of the National Commission for Science, Technology, and Innovation. The other functions are there. I will not read them. We have a leading agency, of course, advise the national county governments and so forth. So the other functions, NACOSTI has 12 functions. I just wanted to highlight that in the Act, there is a word they keep on repeating. If you look at that function, number 10, it talks of advise the government on policies and any issue relating to scientific research systems. There's a word research system, which is a keyword. Thought we could just mention something about it. Then number 11 is also talks of promoting increased awareness, knowledge, and information of research systems. So that word is repeated several times. And by the definition of the Act, research systems actually means research, science, technology, and innovation. It is not research. It is research, science, technology, and innovation. That is what is called research systems. And as I said before, it could also be called as the STI system. It could also be called as innovation system. And in the simplest of terms, I was trying to look in the Googling and the dictionary on this. The simplest I could get was that research fits into science, which is about creation of knowledge. And science fits into technology, which is the application of knowledge. And then technology fits into innovation. Our weak link is in innovation. That's the application of technology, because innovation speaks a different language. Even innovation as entrepreneurship, it has business component. And in many cases, we researchers and scientists and innovators, we are not so good at speaking that business language. So one of the areas as we develop the next generation workforce is to find people who have the ability for STI diplomacy. So the other functions I will not mention, except number 14, and I'm happy Professor Kipkemboi is there, a very important document, which is to annually review the progress in scientific research system. You can see the word research system is there again, and submit a report of his findings and recommendations to the cabinet secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this due to teething problems has not been done, but for now, the board of NACOSTI has approved again a document which we would want to engage you later on. And Professor Kipkemboi and Professor Maria Bukusa were involved as our key resource persons in evolving this document. It's really cross-cutting, but it attempts to capture the current status of research and development, and in particular, we have to capture what is Kenya's ranking in a number of indices in the global indices. And for example, what is Kenya's ranking in the Global Innovation Index? Which we are doing well in Africa region, but not maybe globally. What is Kenya's ranking in the World Competitiveness Index? What is Kenya's ranking in SDG Index? What is Kenya's ranking in ICT Index? What is Kenya's ranking in, is it Frontier Technologies Index? They're about almost 8 to 9 indices, which speak and are very independent, and they inform where Kenya's position in. And it's also possible for MDS to actually calculate their contribution to national development in terms of numbers, so that it's not subjective. You have to say that at NACOSTI, we think you have contributed to this index. What I wanted to mention, I also want to inform some of the powers that we have not fully activated, that the Act gives the Commission, the Commission several powers, that in the performance of its functions under this Act, the Commission shall have powers to apply for the grant or revocation of patents. We have not utilized that, but we really would want information that needs to be patented for the sake of the country. Also, the Commission is empowered to institute such action in respect of the patent as it may deem appropriate for the security of the country. STI as a national security component, and you have empowered that if a patent is going to adversely affect national security or positively affect national security, then as NACOSTI and through the advice of a relevant agency, we have been given the powers to get that patent, and of course, with involving the owner of the patent to ensure that the country benefits from it. The Act also specifies that we have the power to acquire from any person the right in or to any scientific innovation, invention, or patent of strategic importance to the country. So please be aware of that the country is important than each one of us, even as we contribute towards national development. Then you have the power to collaborate with similar scientific institutions or organizations operating outside Kenya. And that's why you find NACOSTI is the focal point on a number of Kenya's international obligations relating to science, technology, and innovation. Then we are allowed to demand and receive annual reports from research institutions, which we do, from CALRO, from Cambridge, from ISIPE, from all those institutions, and we are happy that they've been cooperating on this. Further, these are the guiding principles that do not have a tweet. So with that presentation, allow me to invite my colleague, I think Dr. David Juby, to proceed from there.
Thank you, DG. I'm just going to give a highlight on the draft science, technology, innovation. And as you all know, the Act, which we have just mentioned about, came forth from the STI policy. And of course, the rationale for STI policy is that the sector over time has grown substantially since independence in 1963. And of course, there is the group is currently interconnected. And of course, they have been facing a lot of challenges. And one of them is the COVID-19 pandemic, which is perhaps one of the greatest challenges that globalization has brought forth. And of course, this has transcended beyond human health to negatively affect social, economic, culture, and political settings. And it's therefore very important that we harness the full potential of science, technology, innovation in a coherent and coordinated manner that necessitates the formulation of a comprehensive STI policy framework. We have talked of the Asian tigers because they embraced STI. As a country, we should do the same. And in the policy, we had these policy priorities, which the first one was legal institutional framework. The second was human resource development, third, education, training, and research. Then there is the funding for STI. Then we have technology development, transfer, and diffusion, and of course, commercialization. There's infrastructure for STI, and also collaboration and partnership in STI, and gender mainstreaming in STI, and finally, performance management. And of course, we had a vision, and the vision is to accelerate transition to knowledge-based economy. And our mission is to mainstream the application of STI in all sectors and national production system through generation, acquisition, dissemination, and utilization of available capacities in order to achieve the objective of Kenya Vision 2030. We have mentioned STI has been acknowledged in Vision 2030 as a foundation. And the goal of the policy is to facilitate transformation of the economy from factor-based to knowledge-based economy. And these are the policy objectives of the policy. The first one was to strengthen the legal framework and the governance of STI, also to enhance the quality and capacity of human resource and talent management. And the other one was to realign education training programs to national, regional, and county and industrial needs, and development of mechanisms to sustain financial mobilization and investment in STI. And the other one was to encourage technology development by diffusion, transfer, and commercialization, where we have talked as being one of the weaknesses, because we are able to do a lot of research outputs, but we are not able to take them to the next phase where Wajiko can benefit from. The other is to strengthen the STI infrastructure. And of course, we have some of the high institutions which they talk of the infrastructure, which is very repeated, and also enhance collaboration and partnerships in STI and promoting gender mainstreaming in STI. And the other one, the last one, is to be able to monitor and evaluate the STI programs in the country. What I can say is that out of all these objectives, each one of them, we have been able to come up with strategies. And I know in the STI system, each of us in the STI sector have been able to, are already trying to implement this, but we need a more cohesive monitoring and evaluation of the various programs which are ongoing in the MDA, so that we can be able to use those indices to be able to evaluate as a country, benchmark with the global indices, so that we can be able to know how much as a country we are progressing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to remind the distinguished delegates that you may use the chat if you have any question or any comment or observation or suggestion, so that immediately after the next presentation, then we can be able to look at what has been shared. So basically mine is to provide the highlights of the draft strategic plan 2023 to 2028, which has already been shared. Our vision, as indicated, is to have a dynamic and transformational STI system or sector. Hopefully we would agree at a later stage which one will appear better. The mission is picked directly from the Act, why NACOSTI was established, and is really to regulate and assure quality in the science, technology, and innovation sector, and also advise the government. We have 4 key result areas. These are on regulation, advisory, and promotion. We are also looking at surveillance and compliance. The third one is planning, partnership, and resource mobilization. And then, of course, we need an institution which has been empowered to undertake those key result areas. As a way of developing this plan, we are actually building on the previous plan, which is due to end this June on 30th, because we go as per the financial year. And as part of the methodology, we were able to review and look at the achievements. We also looked at the challenges, those issues which we were not able to achieve and why. We have lessons learned, and then of course there are emerging issues from that review of the previous plan. We also undertook an environmental scan on matters of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Of course, how do we build on our strengths, and how do we reduce the weaknesses, and how do we exploit those opportunities which are out there? Of course, by dealing with that, we are hoping that that threats will keep some distance away from us. Of course, we have also undertaken a stakeholder analysis. As it was mentioned by the DG, we are looking at a multi-sectoral approach, which means we have everybody on board, because we are talking about science, technology, and innovation, and everybody is either affected or has to utilize the products of science and technology. Getting straight to the key result areas, the first one I mentioned is matters of regulation, advisory, and promotion. And one of the major activities NACOSTI is known for is the aspect of approval of scientific research. Of course, the reasons have been well elaborated why we need to approve scientific research, and then also register research institutions. We have left in the relevant references from the Act for the purpose of of those who are attending, understanding it better. Where is it from? But at a later stage, as we finalize the document, then those will be edited out. The other key strategy is the one to advise the national government on science, technology, and innovation. And this is what was mentioned by the Director General on development of priorities, and also whatever happens on advancements of science, technology, and innovation, we should be able to advise. The third strategic objective is to promote science, technology, and innovation. And it was mentioned under function K that we have to promote increased awareness, knowledge, and information on the research system. Just to repeat that when we mention the research system, it has been defined as research, science, technology, and innovation. And then there's the aspect of promoting the adoption and application of scientific and technological knowledge. And when we talk about application, this is where matters of intellectual property come in. And I'm glad I've seen officers from KIPI attending and officers from the other IP offices. Of course, we also have to encourage private sector involvement in matters of science, technology, and innovation. And this is where you will find aspects of partnership within our strategic plan. How do we promote partnerships? The second key area is on surveillance and compliance. And one of the strategies is for us to be able to undertake regular inspections, monitoring, and evaluation. Of course, for the registered research institutions, we already undertake this, and even for those who are licensed, we actually sample a few and see how they are progressing, so that if there are challenges, whether on their side or on our side, we can be able to address them. We also develop and enforce codes and guidelines, and we have been able to develop quite a number of them. Key among them is the one for establishment of institutional scientific and ethics review committees. We also have guidelines on institutional intellectual property policy, and we also have other guidelines on registration of research institutions, and we will continue to review them during this plan period. Under the key result area 3, which is on planning, partnership, and resource mobilization, how do we enhance the planning for programs in the STI sector? And then we should also be able to coordinate most of these activities, especially the ones where we have international commitments. And during the DG's presentation, you noticed that NACOSTI is a focal point to quite a number of international treaties and protocols. And then the other issue is that how do we get the institutions to work together, so that if the institutions are under the agriculture system and the project maybe is related, we should be able to ensure that there is coordination and cooperation among these various agencies. And then the other thing under strategic objective 3, which is to enhance.
So you don't need to worry.
Sorry, somebody should mute. Okay, thank you. So under strategic objective 3, we should be able to enhance knowledge management. And one of the activities we have put in this plan is for us to be able to have a repository, so that the reports. Dr. Andala, Professor Andala, please. Okay, thank you. So I had mentioned that one of the strategies under promoting cooperation and synergies between the various agencies is for us to enhance knowledge management. And one of the activities we have in this plan is for us to be able to have a repository, so that as we receive reports from registered institutions, or licensed researchers, we are able to have this information in a repository for use by the other players within the sector. Under the institution capacity and corporate positioning, the aspect of human resource capacity is key, because right now NACOSTI is operating at below 50% of the capacity. And then we also have to look at the welfare of staff so that we establish and enhance staff wellness programs. We also have to mobilize resources because government-wise and it is in public domain, resources are scarce. So how do we go through whether it is automating some of the services so that we utilize less the cost of doing business, or how do we partner or mobilize resources for us to be able to achieve what has been proposed in this plan? Of course, the issue of visibility, this one doesn't stop. And under this plan, we shall continue to enhance the corporate visibility and also enhance customer satisfaction. This organogram is here just for the purpose of enlightening us on the various offices that have been approved for the organization. And the newest among these directorates is the one of compliance, monitoring, and evaluation. And we are hoping during this plan period, this directorate will be staffed so that we are able to achieve whatever that is expected of us. The next one is just about the projected financial performance. Maybe those in the finance will tell us, because yesterday during the budget, it was mentioned that 750 million or 850 million to the science, technology, and innovation. Now, hopefully the details will come out as it unfolds. But of course, when we have resource gaps, we have to look at alternative ways of bridging these gaps. Some of the things to be undertaken under resource management, it will be the issue of allocating resources so that we achieve the best in terms of value. Of course, NACOSTI will continue to comply with the policy and legal frameworks, be it the Public Finance Management Act or the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. And then it would also institute cost-cutting measures in every functional area. Of course, as part of business reengineering, we have to review our processes and see how best to digitize or automate most of our processes. This one is just about how we went about undertaking risk analysis, and it was undertaken strategic objective by strategic objective. And one of the issues which still come out is the issue of awareness. And those attending today's meeting, we request you to be our ambassadors. Of course, the issue of inadequate human capital remains key, not just for NACOSTI, but also in other institutions. But I think the big question is that how do we partner with other institutions or use the capacity which is out there? Of course, being a science, technology, and innovation regulator, we know there are rapid technological changes. How do we keep up with that and also advise the government accordingly? Of course, in strengthening regulatory and quality assurance, we still need to have extra human capital for us to be able to really undertake this function as per the Act. We also have to strengthen our resource mobilization, and one of the key deliverables within this plan is for us to develop and implement a resource mobilization strategy. We also have to build the capacity so that within institutions, especially in the science, technology, and innovation, cooperation and collaboration becomes the norm, not an exception. And as we look at that aspect of corporate, we have planned to undertake whether it is customer satisfaction, both internal and external customers, and also we look at how to improve our communication. And one of the deliverables would be for us to review our current communication strategy so that we update it, and then we should also be able to implement during the plan period. Of course, you can have a very good plan, but if you don't have the element of monitoring, evaluation, and learning, then you may not know whether you are achieving or not. And one of the things that is proposed under this plan, under monitoring, would have to have progress reports just to check on the state of implementation. And if there are any challenges, how do we make adjustments? of course, with the necessary approval. And then we'll be looking at the input indicators, the finances, the human, the physical, the intangible, and also the output indicators. And our strategic objectives have to be smart so that we are able to really monitor it and be sure that we are working according to the plan. Of course, 2 key evaluation activities will be undertaken. There will be the midterm evaluation and also the end-term evaluation. One of the other activities that has been proposed as a key activity within the strategic plan is the aspect of indicators. How do we tell as a sector? How do we compare ourselves to the other countries? Of course, the DG has mentioned about the innovation system, but of course, at the end of the day, it will have to be comparable. Therefore, as we look at the different elements, be they from the business point of view, be they from the intellectual property assets, be they from the public safety point of view, be they from the human resource and the education point of view, how do we have this scorecard to ensure that as a country, we are on the right trajectory? So as I conclude, this being the 5th generation strategic plan for the Commission, we are hoping that it will enable us to effectively undertake our mandate. And as it was mentioned, we have the Science, Technology and Innovation Act 2013. We have the Constitution of Kenya, which has also been referred to in the chat by one of the delegates, and we also have international obligations. The strategic plan emphasizes a multi-sectoral approach to the application and integration of science, technology, and innovation to all sectors of economy for national prosperity. Thank you very much for listening. We would encourage most of the delegates to post their charts, their questions, their observations, their suggestions, but maybe we'd also have time just to respond to a few which have been shared with us.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Good afternoon. Oh, is it afternoon? It's still morning, eh?
Yeah,
I've
still
seen
morning.
I'm just looking at your key result areas, and I was wondering what are every key result area has a cost implication. Have you done the costing for each of them? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other response? Maybe you didn't tell us your name, madam.
My name is Professor Alice Ndiema from Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other reaction?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, this is Margaret Wanabisi from Kibabi University. I just have some observations on the strategic plan. Actually, it's a very good strategic plan, but I have some observations that the key result area is not on the matrix. It's supposed to be the first thing on the matrix, followed by the strategic objective, because if you have a strategy, then you have an objective. But I've not seen the strategic objective on the matrix. And then another area, I've seen an area for responsibility, but I've not seen any officer who has been indicated there as the person responsible for each and every assignment that has been given. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Any other question or observation or suggestion? Yeah, thank you.
Can I make an intervention?
Yes, thank you, Kanai. May I say one or two things as we continue the discussion? Yeah, first is allow me to acknowledge the presence mostly of our board members. I think we have checked through. We'd just like to acknowledge, we already acknowledged the presence of Professor Rafael Manavu. We are acknowledging the presence of Madam Director Rachel Shibalera. I think despite her busy schedule, I think she's part of this meeting. We also acknowledge my director, the CEO of Kenya National Innovation Agency, Dr. Tony Omwansa. I know that he's in transit, he's in Doha coming from Korea, but has really spared some time to join us. I also want to acknowledge my other director, board member, the CEO of NRF, Professor Dixon Andala. Maybe others will join, and let them feel free at any time to give us words of wisdom. I also just want to notice, I think there are quite a number of you, but I know Professor Shimwata, you are there. Professor Julius Kipkemboy, you are there, and all of you, by the way, I've just a few that you have interacted with recently. We also want to acknowledge the presence of the private sector, particularly private universities. We see this representation from Tangaza University, Zetech University, and I think there are others, Baraton University, and quite a number. So this is quite multi-stakeholder engagement. And before I take back to my colleague, the owner of the activity, Sakalera, we just wanted, with regard to the matrix, we could put everything on the slide, but on the main document at the very end, there's a matrix. We have strictly adhered to the 5th generation strategic plan guidelines as given by the National Treasury. Of course, as I told you, this is not conclusive because a new guidelines are coming, and when they come again, we will actualize the same and probably come back to you. So at the end, there is what we're talking about. There'll be the KRAs, the strategic objectives, and there will be the activities and the costing. Even the money is there. I think at the end of it, the total cost is about 10 billion Kenya shillings, a little bit far-fetched. And then responsibilities, maybe that's a column that we need to populate. But we have done it as per the requirements of that 5th generation guidelines of the National Treasury. So the KRS, to answer just the two questions, the KRS therefore have cost implications. They have been captured there. It's a requirement, by the way, by those guidelines. I've also seen a question on the chat. I think we'll be responding, but first we want to respond to some which came earlier, which my colleague will do. There was that one about research licensing, which is always a question. Would kindly want to request our sector to read the act. I know this is under section, whether it's a particular section, the one of research licenses, section 12. Section 12 clause 1 talks of everybody needs to undertake research licensing. Then the next one talks of the waiver to universities, the waiver to research institutions, and the Attorney General has interpreted that to imply like the masters or PhD that are inside the program. But nonetheless, go to number 3. You'll find number 3. Number 2 gives a waiver to number 1. But number 3 gives now something where there's no waiver. That's number 1 provision. Then if you go below, you will see things of anybody who plans to undertake a research and so many things. So if you read it, you literally see, they say anybody who's plans to undertake a research or is in touch with research material and so many things, then you'll see that it will tell you, you'll see where you fit in. But the bottom line is, why do you do research licensing? The same act talks of you do research licensing. Number 1 is to ensure national security. Number 2 is to ensure the lives of Kenya are safe. So between you and me, if you waive this, then there has to be another team, maybe the Commission for University Education. Yeah, there has to be another team which is able to check, because how sure will you, even if you are a head of institution or you are chair of a department, that the research being done in your lab is safe even for you, especially in the wake of COVID. So the reasons for undertaking research was for about 5 reasons: national security, the lives of Kenyans, the public safety, ensuring that the IP rights of indigenous people are not taken. Like we have people applying, who have even patented, by the way, applying for research on some of the indigenous knowledge systems. I can mention one of somebody with having an anti-snake venom, and this has been inherited. and then you have gone ahead and patented it, is it in order? The Act doesn't allow you to patent what belongs to your community unless you demonstrate that you have scaled it up. So it protects everybody. And that's why even that attempt of waiver to us was like for the basic research, which is not out of the lab. Very basic research, final year students doing their projects and so forth, which is not likely to impact. But COVID pandemic will tell you that literally everything out there can be very harmful. So it's for your own life and my own life to check on that. So we can still engage on that one, but I'll hand over to my colleague before we come back to the chat. He will try to respond to some of the issues or recommendations that came before this meeting. There are others who actually wrote, and they're quite detailed. So once he has done that, then they come back for discussions. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, DG. Let me quickly go through some of the comments we had received earlier. The first one was from Matthew from the French Embassy. And the question was, how do we balance the various priorities? And the answer here is that through development of science, technology, and innovation priorities, which will be done in a consultative and with a multi-sectoral approach, we shall be able to prioritize, taking into cognizance the better, the economic transformation agenda of the current government. Therefore, would still come to the stakeholders on how to include everybody in this.
Yes, sorry, just to also add on, I think one of the documents that we have shared with stakeholders inside that document is actually the proposed priorities as approved by the board of the National Commission. So the broader priorities are already there for discussion. This is benchmarked globally and also focused on the government agenda. So we have to ensure that the government agenda is fully included. Now, the details of those priorities will be undertaken by the sector working groups. Like if it's on health, then we are likely to have a sector working group on health, which will now have the expertise and go and break down that element. If it's on food security, as NACOSTI, we do not have that expertise. We will have now the experts in food security as a sector working group, a multi-sector working group to undertake that. Thank you. Back to Level.
Yeah, thank you very much, DG, for that. The other question was on the aspect of open science. And from our view, open science still requires further consultations, because the question was specific, whether we are going to develop a draft national strategy. And I think the starting point will be for NACOSTI to put up a team of experts in this area so that we have a policy brief, so that we start from the advisory point before we think of developing a strategy. But we also know that at the regional level, there are efforts of having a regional strategy on open science. The other question was on how do we engage counties? From the strategic plan, one of the key activities is for us to finalize a county engagement framework, which we already have. We hope would still come back to you for approval and engage everybody, including the Council of Governors. With that, then we'll have a clear way of engaging the counties. Of course, it was noticed that we had not indicated the private sector in the stakeholder analysis. Our apology, we have now updated. I think all our previous plans, we have had that. And then there's Dr. Kingau from Laikipia University, who had noticed something about the SDGs, who would update and put all of them as they are supposed to appear. Allow me to request my colleague, Dr. David Yubi, to respond to the questions on the Biological Weapons Convention. And we have also had some questions in the chat from Mary Sichangi and Charles Waweru on the aspect of STEM education.
Thank you very much. On the issues of BWC, we are the focal point, the DG is the focal point, and we have had several activities which are ongoing even in the next SP. Issues of ensuring that we are able to facilitate monitoring and assessment of scientific and technological advances in the framework of the convention. Also, there is the issue of creating awareness among the different levels of our stakeholders, and also bringing in the issues of the youth so that we are able to strengthen the convention in Kenya. We have also had various other capacity building on the issue of BWC, and we are hoping to take it to a higher level in this SP. Thank you very much. And then there was the issue of STEM. Of course, as the DG had mentioned when he was talking of the STI priorities, he mentioned of STEM, of STI education. STEM is one of them: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we have been working with other stakeholders, the Ministry of Education, and also UNESCO and Kenya, UNESCO and the NACOSTI. So it is in our strategic plan. It's one of the activities which we'll be carrying forward in this SP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gigi. One of the other questions we received today morning was from Philip Karobia Marago from Meru National Polytechnic, and it was on the aspect of promoting. The recommendation was that we should have the aspect of promoting STI through training of champions and focal persons. I just wanted to mention that this has been captured under the bigger aspect of capacity building, but in the annual corporate plan, would actually have aspects of training of champions and STI focal points. Any other? Okay, I can see George Shiamwata.
Thanks, thanks, Geoffrey. I must admit that this is a very good document. And in terms of the input, perhaps I would have, of course, I note the issue of STEM has been mentioned. That was one of my biggest worry, because we can't really talk of STI without STEM. And I even just did a search from the document, and I realized that STEM only appears once. And the way it was phrased, it appears like in passing. So maybe we need really to reinforce the issue of STEM and, of course, indicate the strategies and activities that will be put in place to ensure that this is pursued. I know we've been coordinating this together with the NACOSTI, so it will be good that that is really entrenched very well in the strategic plan. Besides that, I also have just a few things perhaps I would want to mention. One, in as much as we are in the fourth industrial revolution and the fifth industrial revolution is beckoning, there is no mention of that and how STI and Kenya can really position itself to take advantage of the opportunities that emerge from these industrial revolutions. There's also no mention of artificial intelligence. There's no mention of ethical issues in artificial intelligence, but also ethical issues in AI or STI. This perhaps requires a lot of emphasis. Of course, also when you go to the policy and regulatory framework, I would perhaps recommend we beef it up. I would imagine we may also need to have the STI Act there, which is missing. We may want to have perhaps the Industrial Property Act, which is missing, the Copyright Act, which is missing, the Education Act, which of course I believe is the mother of all of course, sagas in the education under the Ministry of Education. So perhaps we may want to ensure that we capture this. Then, of course, I was also looking at the challenges that you encountered in implementing the previous strategic plan. I realized that funding is not a challenge for you because it's not highlighted there. So somebody reading this draft or somebody reading this strategic plan will say you are very well endowed with the funds. I don't believe that's the case. So if it's really a challenge, I think it's really needed to have come out very well, because these are documents that we'll be using to resource mobilize. And so if somebody looks at one of the challenges being funding, then they will be willing to partner with you. In terms of scanning your stakeholders in your stakeholder analysis, I realized that some of the stakeholders that we really need, who have specific needs from NACOSTI, are missing. And we ended up lumping sagas, we ended up lumping ministries. I would even imagine the presidency would be a very important stakeholder, given that NACOSTI is an advisor to the president on matters STI. So I would imagine the presidency will come out very well. I would even imagine perhaps certain ministries that really require a lot of support from NACOSTI would be highlighted, as well as highlighting the needs, their needs, what they actually require from NACOSTI. In terms of when you're looking at the SWOT analysis, I was looking at the section on opportunities. I felt it's a bit scanty. I know there are so many opportunities out there, including even the opportunity you would have of having many partners who would be willing to work with you. That is an opportunity that needs to be documented here. So I would imagine that the strengths needs to be perhaps beefed up. The opportunities also needs to be beefed up because there are so many out there. In terms of the risks, I think we may also have to look at the risks of under risk management. I think we also need to highlight the risks of issues to do with corruption and all that, and how as an institution, what are some of the mitigation measures you've put in place to address this? I think it's also a requirement under the EASCC PC targets, which of course has now been retired, but I believe we also need to show that that could be a risk in future, and if it's a risk, what are some of the mitigation measures? I think from where I stand, I must of course commend the team that has worked on this, and we are here to, we hope that some of these comments can find their way in the document to make it better. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the valuable comments. We'll consider each of them, and you have made very valuable suggestions, which our team has really noted. And maybe Digit?
Yes, thank you very much for those very, very useful comments. I think literally all of them, we acknowledge we might not have rigorously captured them. And therefore, this is, I think what you have said is recorded, and our team will really bring it on board. And we note the issue of STEM is a major thing, especially now in the CBC. It needs to be like a standalone and emphasize. We totally agree. Mention the 4th and the 5th Industrial Revolution. I know we have put it as one of the priority areas, but probably, as you're saying, it needs a lot of more emphasis. Now, with regard to the acts in the document, we didn't show it on the screen, but in the document, we have listed the key legislative documents that we have consulted or have direct impact on this. Perhaps we can highlight some, but there's a long list that includes a number of these, the STI Act, the Copyright Act. There's a long list that is there in the document itself. We didn't show it on the screen, but it's there. But perhaps you want us to highlight on some of the areas. In terms of challenges, yes, I agree. Finance is a big issue. It's a big issue, and thank you for highlighting that one. We'll figure out how to capture it. It's a big issue in all of us. And by the way, it directly relates to the 2%, which is captured in the act, which was to come from the national government, but as not, because of other limitations, has not come forth. So it's a big issue for the sector. That's why we are not able to fully undertake our 17 functions, which requires a lot of peer evaluation, peer visits, peer considerations. So our resources are really limited. So that one is quite a good one. Then you said you have missed out on key ministries. Of course, the presidency is at the top, at the very, very top. And we have learned something from you there. We will include it. SWOT analysis, I think, will also be enhanced and the element of it. So we just want to thank you for those very useful comments. And this is the reason why we are having this engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Just to tell those present that we have an evaluation form in the chat. allow me to invite Professor Julius Kipkemboi for his input.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kalerwa. And I want to really appreciate you, DG, and the members of the board. We acknowledge and recognize the presence of the board chair. That shows the interest in this document, which I believe this is a document which will enable the commission execute its mandate and functions, and of course, contribute to our vision and also globally to the SDGs. I want to also appreciate that, like my previous colleague, that this is a document which is responsive to the real world and the external with, of course, also internal circumstances. And like any document, of course, strategic plan is a relay process. As stakeholders, we want to assume that this has been informed by the previous strategic plan, and therefore it builds on it. I want to reiterate, like what the DG has said, that we hope that with this document, we'll be able to overcome the challenges, some of the challenges, which of course have been there. The DG mentioned that it is anticipated that the Commission shall annually review progress in scientific and research systems and produce an annual report. Of course, this has been a big challenge to get quantitative and up-to-date information, which can help the Commission to develop and update the indices which show us our progress, and of course compare ourselves with other countries in terms of STI. So I think this document will capture this. I wanted to just make a few comments. Of course, this is an evolving document. It keeps changing. So what I may make in terms of comments may have changed. For instance, it is a strategic plan, not necessarily as indicated in the earlier document, 2023-2024 to 2027/2028. Of course, it's 2023-2028. In the vision, I mean, in the document which highlights on the cover page, I missed the issue of coordination as part of the strategic objectives to regulate, assure quality advice. But I'm stand corrected. I thought coordination and promoting STI is part of this. And then I think I missed in the forward the link between the previous strategic plan, but I think I have heard from Mr. Kalerwa that this is the fifth. It is important in the forward to mention that this is the fifth strategic plan, so that it builds up. On the concepts and terminologies, I think there was something which DG also mentioned. It's just clarity and consistency in terms. We talk about traditional knowledge, and we also talk about indigenous knowledge. Perhaps we need to use a term which many people are familiar with and resonate with many people. In the executive summary, it misses a mention of annexes, because they are annexes to this document. So it's good also for anyone who will read the executive summary to also recognize that there are annexes which contain some useful information. Otherwise, it will be missed out. I think on the, just to summarize my comments, there's a section where we are talking about the global and national development issues. I think this is a section which needs to be looked into, and especially where we are talking about global issues. There is a list of global issues, but this list can be reviewed so that it flows nicely. Some sections are just, perhaps I would say they may be wordy. And especially for the regional issues, I missed a number of issues from the continental to regional to East Africa. So I think we need to bring it from the continental to COMESA to East Africa. My colleague, one of my colleagues, I think has mentioned the issue of SDGs in the chat, so I will not go back to that. The section on international obligations all the way to, yeah, there is a mix up there because we talk about conventions and organizations, so maybe we can reorganize. And then I think there is the order of precedence under the policy and legal and regulatory framework. Again, this can be relooked into. My thinking is that maybe the section where we are talking about sustainable development goals, of course, some of these can be summarized into an infographic, so it makes it easier for people to look at where the Commission comes in, especially on specific targets which relate to STI, particularly 9.5. And then on the areas of the challenges, I think again there are few things which I thought could come out, particularly on human and technological development when we talk about capacity. So I think these are areas which perhaps over time it will evolve and improve. Then the issue of key result areas in terms of regulation of research, what I missed there is I think how the technological facilitation mechanism on the promotion and sharing of research, science and technology and innovation. And this is quite critical. This is quite critical because some of the things which have been missing is how can people or stakeholders access the information about what's going on in this area. And then on the SWOT, again, I had an issue which I think Dr. Ishiamwata has raised, including the issue of partnership. I want to, what I will do, DG, is I will summarize some of the comments I had made on the document. Unfortunately, I did not get the soft copy. I would have done some track changes. But I think the other area which I looked at is a strategic model. Again, in the strategic model, where we are mentioning core values, I don't think there is need to really, expound customer focus, profession, because once we mention these are the core values, we don't need to really extend. There was an issue on the STI innovation system, and I hope that the governance issues covers the normative instruments, recommendations, declarations, and ethical guidelines, which are, conventional. I also, in the indicators missed in the impacts, the diagram, figure 3.2, I missed, I think the impacts could be improved so that it covers other areas, including even environmental issues, pollution and environmental integrity, as well as issues that relate to emerging issues like climate change. I have some specific comments on the strategic objectives, but I can share my write-up on this. If I get this the soft copy of the document, I can put a few issues on the track changes. I think basically that's what I could mention. The other thing which perhaps DG and the colleagues from the Commission is on the risk analysis. I don't know why. Perhaps what informed the change from a qualitative. Of course, it's it's semi-quantitative, that we use high, moderate, low instead of especially on the matrix. But this is something which can be reviewed or considered so that we can have some scores which can help us over time monitor this. The rest of the document, I think it is still evolving, and perhaps when we come to towards the end, we need to indicate clearly how many reviews will be done in this document so that it informs the rolling plan matrix of the strategic plan once it's approved. So those are my few comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Kipsemboi. We have taken note of your presentation, which is very good, and we are glad that you will be able to receive the document and give us elaborate responses. Maybe just a quick response. There was the aspect of explaining core values. This one was as per the guidelines, the Treasury guidelines that you indicate the core value and what it means to the organization. And then, of course, you mentioned the aspect of risk analysis is actually what has been provided in the guideline, because the previous plan would actually put a specific scores. But that the comments are well taken, and we'll be able to really look at them and improve the document. Thank you very much. We'll definitely share the soft copy before the end of today. Allow me maybe to allow 2 or 3 others before we go to the way forward. I've seen Jackson Mdengia. Please go ahead. Just tell us your institution.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate the people who have talked before me. My name is Jackson Wachira Mdengia from the University of Embu. My contribution will be very simple, just to throw spanners into the work. Number one, I note the document is still a live document. There are a lot of reviews that are going on, which is very good. And the engagement with key stakeholders is of paramount to what you're doing. Very, very, very encouraging to see such a document. I can also say that the document is fairly well done. But allow me just to raise 2 issues. Of course, the strategic objectives and the KRA are very well articulated. They capture each and every aspect that one would wish to be captured. But perhaps we could look at ways of reducing the volume of the document, because I believe that these are documents that we will share with donors, we will share with key stakeholders, and a majority of donors or key stakeholders would wish a document that is frank and to the point. So there are some areas that we may need to reduce, there are some areas that we may need to flag out, there are some areas that we may need to condense, there are some areas that we may need to panel bit so that they are brief and to the point without losing the original intentions of the SP. There are a few things perhaps you can relook at, and especially when you're stating the strategic objectives, such that one can be able to see exactly what you're inferring. And again, you don't copy paste from the acts or the various frameworks under which NACOSTI operates. Like, for example, if you look at KRA 1, SO1, strategic objective 1, to regulate the science, technology, and innovation sector, as captured in section 4 of the STI Act. We should develop would review such statements to capture the spirit of a strategic objective. I was just trying to look at the issues that you carried forward from the previous SP, and also lessons learned. And I could see things like capacity, frameworks. So are we able to put it in a manner that it reflects a strategic objective? I had a suggestion that I had put on the chat, such that again, we don't have strategies that more of reflect the day-to-day activities of NACOSTI, like licensing, approving scientific, registering, accrediting, research. Those to me would be more of the day-to-day activities. But what is so strategic that we can be able to put in such a strategic objective. There was also, I had a chance of having the document, the soft copy. Strategic objective number 1 on KRA number 2. When you look at the strategies, again, those would be more of day-to-day activities expected of NACOSTI. Whether they're in the SP or not, you must do them. Things like surveillance, regular inspections, monitoring. Let's have strategic activities or strategies that will be able to push forward NACOSTI. I looked at one of the things that I saw in the matrix at the appendices was about repository. And I thought that would be one of the key areas that you can look at capturing either in the strategies against building or the strengthening institutional capacity. Having strategies of assisting or facilitating institutions to develop even research repositories or NACOSTI, doing a national research repository so that it comes out as a key thing. So to me, what I would look at it is just a matter of just playing around with the wording so that we are not more of copy pasting what the Act is saying as strategic objectives. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, again, extremely useful comments and thank you very much. Very useful. I totally agree with you on capturing this thing of what is strategic. Sometimes it's not so clear, and I think a number of those day-to-day activities should probably be in the activities column in the final matrix. But our challenge, one of the challenges that sometimes we have in these strategic plans is it's also very possible to lose some of your core functions in the strategic plan. You know, strategic plan is a live document that is meant to realize the act. And what we found, part of the lessons learned, is a situation where you might find a strategic plan has forgotten a key function, just forgotten unknowingly, and then you end up implementing a very successful strategic plan. But then when you come back later on to review, have you captured a mandate? You found you've forgotten something. So I think that is what informed the first priority, and that's why we're even retaining the sections for now. They'll be deleted later on. Just first of all, to assure ourselves that everything that's the mandate of NACOSTI is captured. But I totally agree with you that probably they need to go to activity section or somewhere, but just to ensure that even as we bring in the emerging issues and so forth, every function of NACOSTI is captured. And this is more so severe based on the recent circular that we received, where the presidency is very concerned about the regulatory agencies. Are they actually doing the work? You can see in the Act, it empowers us to even get patents of national importance. So if you don't capture the strategic plan, it will be in the Act, but it's not in the strategic plan. So we will try, as I was saying, very importantly, give the broader strategic, but ensure that all those functions, activities are somewhere, whether they're in the activity column or in whichever column we try that. Very useful advice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, DG. NACOSTI. And maybe after that, we shall have one more and we go to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also, I just want to make some comments, but I must appreciate the previous comments. It happened that I've just gone through also the executive summary. I think what is missing is also linking the financing, because the financing bit, how are you going to finance all these activities throughout the plan period? So we must link, the executive summary must tell how you are going to implement what you have actually come out with. Again, in terms of the KRAs, I believe that part of the reportings in the PC, there is the element of NACOSTI. I think you are missing that in the entire document. And that is one of your core mandate, or I don't know, maybe it has to come out, because in the performance contracting, there's some section that all institutions, all organizations must actually adhere to. And then out of it, I think it should be one of the KRAs. So that how are you going to implement these in the next 5 years? And then in terms of still financing, I'm very sure you are working from a budget. So probably it should be very clear where are you coming from and where are you going, so that there's continuity in terms of financing. I think those are some of my comments. Other comments have been put across by other members who have commented. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. They are well taken care of. Allow me to allow one of our stakeholders, Javan Mwiti from MMU, for his comments.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalero. I also take the opportunity to appreciate the previous speakers and their contribution on this. Sorry for that. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalero and the NACOSTI team for this opportunity for us to contribute, of course, as stakeholders within the process as you develop your strategic plan. Of course, one of the key aspect within NACOSTI is, of course, we have a performance indicator called STI mainstreaming. And again, if you look at even the year 2023-2024 that we're implementing the next financial year from 1st of July, we have already received for universities specifically, when you look at our core mandate specifically, there is an introduction of some cross-cutting indicators, mostly on research, that of course support implementation of science, technology, and innovation. Basically, I want also to appreciate that the process of developing developing the strategic plan has been aided or probably given a lot of push and a lot of directive. I mean, there's a clear directive in terms of implementation through the 5th generation strategic plan development template or guidelines that have been issued. And of course, we know as we move forward with the introduction, with the finalization of MTP4, and of course, the 5 pillars in better, then of course, that will be also much of the input that you need so that the finalization process can take place. When you look at, I've noted one of the comments from, I think, the previous speaker, the relationship between implementation of a strategic plan and performance contracting. Of course, we know one of the documents that you need for you to negotiate your performance for MDAs to negotiate their performance contract is you must avail the strategic plan. And of course, implementation of strategic plan is done through the annual work plans, which ideally basically actualizes the implementation of the implementation matrix. Because if you look at the implementation matrix, ideally, it captures all the KRIs. Below the KRI, you have the objective as it was presented. And below the objective, of course, you have the strategy, and then you have the activities. So I agree with some of the speakers that where activities have reflected, or we have reflected activities strongly, and let's say an objective within a certain KRI, then activities, of course, need to be reflected within the activities. In terms of reflecting or bringing the relationship between strategic plan and the PC implementation, that can appear well within chapter 5, that is monitoring and evaluation. And most of us who have gone through the guidelines will confirm that one of the methodology in terms of having an effective implementation of the strategic plan is to bring the aspect of continuous or quarterly or annual reporting of PC as part of monitoring and evaluation. Because when you report on quarterly basis, for example, when we are reporting on quarterly basis on PC, what ideally we are doing, we are reporting on the aspect that we identified through the strategic plans by MDAs, negotiated and vetted and agreed that we report for that specific year. So quarterly report becomes a powerful tool to tell us where are we in terms of monitoring, where are we in terms of evaluation. So that continues. And then because it's a 5-year plan, at 2.5, that is at 2 years, when you have done it at least for 2 years and 6 months, then you can do midterm review. Midterm review again is a requirement. If you look at the PC guidelines, mostly if for example, look at the 20th cycle, they are very clear that midterm review becomes a basis of monitoring and evaluating the implementation legs of the PC. Of course, that now again monitors. So for the strategic plan, we'll have the 2 point, we'll have a midterm review. Then at the end of it, or within the strategic plan, and that's why I really, that issue that have been raised about the relationship between strategic plan and PC implementation is that at the end of it, or after the 5-year period, of course, all these have been captured within the annual PCs that have been signed, is that to do the end term review. And the end term review, you're not doing monitoring and evaluation. At the end term review, you're establishing what is referred to as the impact. For example, you are to develop 5 programs. After 5 years, you realize you have just developed 1. So it means you have to establish the impact of 1 and establish the impact of the 4 that you missed to develop. So basically that relationship is very strong. So ideally for an effective and efficient implementation of a strategic plan, then performance contracting becomes a powerful tool for that actualization. And I'm really happy for that. And I believe it will really improve this process. Otherwise, thank you so much, NACOST, for the opportunity. I believe we'll be able to get this feedback and to improve the document. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mwiti. Maybe our last observation or suggestion or comment will be from Solomon Kialo before we go back to the DG. Karibu Bwana Kialo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carrera, and thank you to the chair of the session, DG NACOST.
Unmute.
Yes, I'm unmuted. I believe I can be heard. I'm unmuted.
We can hear you clearly.
Yes, I can hear.
We can't get Solomon Kialo.
Maybe NACOST offices.
Go back to the DG so that he may be able to respond to some of the aspects.
Maybe NACOST offices have a problem with Chalo.
Okay. I don't know whether I can now be heard.
Solomon Kialo,
go ahead. Can I be heard now? Can I be heard now?
Yes, I can hear you from my side. Maybe from NACOST's desk.
Okay, and then I think because I'm already unmuted.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was thanking Carrera and the chair of the session, including the DG NACOST, for the opportunity given to us as stakeholders to contribute to the development of the strategic plan for NACOST for the next 5 years. And our previous speakers have mentioned a number of the issues we also wanted to mention, but I will add just a few. First one is to acknowledge that NACOST, we consider NACOST is a repository of information and data that has been realized from research that NACOST approves. And therefore, NACOST is well positioned as a platform for dissemination of the research findings, even for a better uptake of those findings, including any innovation generated. And therefore, considering that positioning, then we note that there is no specific KRA that speaks to the issue of playing that role and presenting that opportunity to the public to receive the findings of the research that has been approved and conducted in this country, so that we can uptake that the resource from those the research approved for betterment of our situation as a country. So although the result is presented in
we are missing you.
In KRA 4 strategic objectives 3, we consider that it can be a standalone KRA. In the previous strategic plan, it is already specific about knowledge management, and we felt we can have knowledge management and outreach so that we can emphasize. We also look at chapter 2 on the situation analysis in the implementation of the current strategic plan. And there is an acknowledgement that there is one of the challenges, there is low awareness about the mandate of NACOSTI. And I think if we can specifically have a resource action to speak to issues of the outreach, then I think we can sort the issue of low awareness, raising to the public about the mandate and what research we as a government is being approved to be conducted in the country and get the findings to enhance that. Then the second point is about the coordination. We note that KRI 3, where we are planning partnership and resource mobilization, 3 is about cooperation. But I think we need to emphasize on coordination of the processes of regulating research, coordinating the processes of advising on the outcomes of the research that have been conducted. And therefore, we can, if we have to maintain up to 4 KRIS or 5 KRIS, and we need to bring the coordination, then we can expand the planning, the partnership, and the coordination. There is acknowledgement that we have multiple regulatory agencies in this space, but then we need to bring in a better coordinating mechanism. And I think it's important that we don't lose in the strategic plan to emphasize on the coordination aspects of research regulation in the country. Then the last one is on, again, on the chapter 2, I think on the presentation of the situation analysis, because we are looking at how NACOSTI has implemented the current strategic plan, which informs the formulation of the one we are talking about, 2023-2028. I think the intention of chapter 2 in this document is to show the success in the implementation of the current strategic plan. And perhaps it can be refined, the information presented, to see that success so that it can inform now the next actions when implementing this new this strategic plan when it's finalized. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Solomon Kialo. And you have mentioned the key issues. You have mentioned the issue of knowledge management, having a repository, and the other issue which had been mentioned earlier, the one of coordination. All these will be taken into consideration. And of course, there's the aspect of multiple regulators within the sector. Thank you very much for your comments. Allow me to go back to the DG so that he can respond to some of the issues in the chat before we progress. Thank you.
Yes, once more, thank you very much. And Kialo, thank you for those very insightful. You seem to have been very close with NACOSTI, because you're able to refer to the previous strategic plans, which we really acknowledge. Yeah, so knowledge management is actually an issue, and we probably will find where to place it. Sometimes the KRAs, in a number of ways, there's an attempt to link the KRAs to the organogram that you have, the organogram that has been approved by SCAC or by the Public Service Commission. And this is simply as part of separation of duties, so that the departments we have, the directors we have, do not end up doing the same function. So that also informs the KRA, so that you wouldn't want to have a KRA which is being implemented by all the directorates or several, because it will, as you know, it will bring up a clash. So that is what could also be informed, trying to limit the KRAs. But what we can do is ensure like that coordination aspect comes out strongly as maybe a key strategic objective within. Of course, we can also still add a KRA, but ensure that there is a particular department or directorate that can undertake that. So we really thank you for that. Now, the issue of repository, I think dissemination. What we have found that the 17 functions, and I think this was done by my predecessors, the 17 functions seem to easily fall under 4 categories. if you just check the 17 functions, you find most likely they either fall under the regulatory framework, or they will fall under the advisory framework, or they'll fall under the coordination framework, and they'll fall under the promotion framework. Yeah, the issue of planning, I think this is a new requirement which was, I think, introduced by our regulating agency, that is CAC. They are very passionate about that department of planning, partnership, and resource mobilization. So I think literally all public institutions, when you take your documents for approval, if you have it, fine. If you don't have it, they will insert it. So it is what actually has informed maybe why it could be tied up with coordination or something. But the planning part is, we are told, is literally mandatory at this particular point of time. And it's not actually part of corporate services. It's actually part of technical services. So we have to try and balance between what we desire, what our regulators also advise, what the government direction that has taken. And for now, we are waiting for the guidelines that will come from the National Treasury, the updated guidelines that includes the government agenda in detail. Yeah, if you allow me, I'm just trying to read very quickly some of the questions posed on the chat. The ones we are not able to communicate today, I think we'll still endeavor to capture them and try to post them in such chat so that you have access to our thinking. So one was on pagination. That one automatically we will do as requested or as guided by our eminent stakeholders. Then there's another one, review of the legal framework in the STI should be captured in the strategic plan. I think that should be through the entire legal framework. And probably that comes in as, because I would even want to tie to the second one, because the second one also talks of SO2, include a strategy on designing STI advisory framework or guidelines. Then SO3, review strategies to continuously change and promote. There are some comments on policies. Now, what we are seeing is that before it was possible to develop policies and once approved by the board and even stakeholders to implement. But if you have seen the Kenyan legislative framework has changed, if you enact even a small regulation that affects Wanjiku, you have to go through the entire process of parliament, the Committee on Delegated Legislation. So for now, in addition to the act, we actually have the legal notices. There are about 3 legal notices, which capture a little bit in detail. These are approved by Parliament or the delegated committee of Parliament and signed by the Cabinet Secretary. So when you have these regulations, you might find in quite a number of ways they suffice on how you handle things like licensing, how you handle things like quality assurance, and so forth. So we would rather go for the guidelines or something which might not require a lot of intensity, but rely heavily on the act and the legal notices so that we are not in breach of some of these processes. So we'll endeavor on that. There's one on, yes, the SP envisages to create a large institution. This is a comment from Wilton Mbinda. We have no choice like other state corporations because our establishment is not decided by us, it's decided at a higher level. So we cannot go beyond what has been determined. Like for now, we have an establishment which has been decided by State Corporations Advisory Committee, and we stick to that, and we can request for extension. So we cannot go beyond. But NACOSTI is very similar to the Commission for University Education. You rely heavily on peers, you rely heavily on resource persons. And one of the things in the Act is the advisory committees. These are external to NACOSTI, where we want an advice on maybe GMO, or we want an advice on anything about technology or on engineering. Then we form a team of an advisory committee or a team of peers to advise us. So that would be our extended work. But the functions are massive, there are 17. And because of having lean staff over the years, maybe over the last 10 years, it has been very difficult to realize those functions. Like one key one is working with the counties, for example. We need to either position a staff in each of the 47 counties, or an office in each of the 47 counties, or even have maybe regional staff. But because of the limitations, financial and other requirements, it's very difficult. So we cannot rely heavily on peers and resource persons. So we will try to make it as lean as required. Then summary on achievement from the previous is missing in chapter 2. Yes, we will capture that. I thought to capture that. Kalera, it is in the document. Maybe what we presented on the screen, because it was a summary. Yeah, we didn't want to. put everything on the document or the screen, then it will be a very heavy PowerPoint presentation. But I think it's in the document, but we'll check it once more. So I think those are the ones I'm able to capture. The other ones, I think we will endeavor to respond. I therefore think we are coming to the close of this session. Unless there's a very burning question, allow me to once more thank my board members who, out of their busy schedule, I think found it in order just to be here today, because they're the ones who will be approving the strategic plan at some end. So I'm sure they're listening to the comments, and when we bring it for them for consideration and approval, they will ask us whether we have incorporated your suggestions. So that is very good for us. We'll ensure that we have incorporated the same. So I thank the board members. I thank all of you that have joined. This has been very extremely useful and fruitful. As we said, this is we had two engagements. One was to just highlight to you and put awareness on the STI policy, which has been there for quite a while. It is at the final stage. This document has been there for 10 years, and I think the Ministry of Education is the main player here. For us, we only advise the ministry. We have done our bit, and I think they're working on either the CAB memo and so forth. So feel free to inquire about that one. The priorities, I think that is the purview of NACOSTI and yourselves. So they projected this. It has been on our website for the last 2 or 3 months, but please go to the website, give your suggestion on those areas, 12-point proposed STI priority areas. Try and benchmark your comment. It becomes easier to incorporate when you say, this is what we are benchmarked with so and so, or we feel this is very unique for Kenya, and include a broad one. We wouldn't want to go to things like chemistry, biotechnology, or that goes deeper, but we want to have outcome-based kind of priorities, which speaks to Wanjiku, that we want to improve the health of Wanjiku, we want to have food security for Wanjiku, we want to train talent and so forth. That's why they're broad. So give us comments maybe within the next 3 or 4 weeks, after which I think the board will finalize this, and it will be a document that will be taken to the minister and probably to the National Treasury. Otherwise, I will hand over to the host of this session. Maybe he will give his remarks and therefore end the session. But I also want to thank Kalero and my team here. They have been working day and night to come to where they have arrived. It's not easy, as you know. Those of you who have participated in this, and Kalero knows it has not been easy. We have been on our toes every single minute. The board, for their guidance, they gave the initial guidance, and they've been pursuing this. In fact, they are the ones who even insisted on the roadmap, that we must have clear roadmap on how we handle this. But I want to inform you that the major document is still coming, the guidelines from the National Treasury. When that happens, we will see how maybe the formatting, the content changes. We will review, and if it's within certain limits, we'll send it to you online for your comments. But if it's massive, I think we'll come back to you for just to ensure that we've incorporated everything. Otherwise, I think I hand over back to my colleague Kalero. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, DG. Just to remind those in attendance, there was the evaluation form in the chat. You would actually just complete it. Allow me to thank all of you for your participation and valuable input. All the comments, observations, suggestions will be looked at by our team, and we should be able to incorporate and improve the document. Maybe before we end, allow me to welcome my colleague, Mr. Gideon Kirui, for a vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalero. I think at this stage, mine is to thank everybody who has been involved. I know we've had about 220 participants online, and that has been very encouraging. For you who have created time to be with us for this period, and for the very insightful and valuable inputs that you've given us to incorporate in as we finalize this plan. I also wish to thank our members of the board for creating time to be with us. And they have always walked this journey with us as we started this process a while back. Even their presence here today gives us the encouragement that this document is heading in the right direction, and that the inputs which we are getting will be incorporated and considered even as we take it to the board. We also thank our staff. I know this journey has been long, we've had a team which has been working on this specific task, but we've also had input from all members of the NACOSTI establishment. And in joining them has been a small team of resource persons, which have been very useful to us as guiding the process as we go through. So for now, I think ours is to give our appreciation and look forward to interacting with you again as we finalize this exercise. Finally, I also wish to thank the DG for putting this together and also guiding the process at the level of his office so that we move forward to a conclusion. I don't have much beyond that. I wish you a nice afternoon, and we can have somebody closing for us with a word of prayer. So let me invite my colleague, Dr. Jubi, close for us with a word of prayer.
Thank you very much, Kirui. May we pray? Father, we come before you this afternoon. We want to thank you for giving us the knowledge, for even giving us insights as we share our faith strategic plan. Father, we thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' mighty name we pray.
Amen.
Thank you very much. I wish you a good afternoon and a fruitful weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, have taken a group.
Thank you.